Research says that men are twice as likely to use weed daily. And if you think about it, it's kind of interesting because really think about it. The dudes who are watching this who smoke weed and who are stoners, do you know any female stoners? I know I didn't. I was one of the biggest stoners that I've ever known. And now that I think about it, I can only name like one or two female stoners out of like the hundreds of stoners that I know. And I know a lot of people who are watching this who are probably dying, just wishing and hoping in their hearts that they could find a female stoner that they could smoke with so they could potentially, develop some sort of intimacy going on. But that's just not gonna happen because there aren't really that many female stoners. But yeah, I just thought that was very interesting and I started to think why. And I think I know the reason why this is the case, and it's not a good reason. To really uncover why this is the case, first we need to think about why do we even use weed in the first place? So think about it, all the stoners watching this right now. Why do you use weed in the first place? A lot of people will kind of give the excuse like, oh, I'm just at the end of the day, I'm going to relax. It's a stress reliever, End of the day after a long day of work or a long day of school, I just smoke a blunt and then all my problems go away and I sit and relax. That's basically all the bullshit that you're telling yourself, right? In reality, it's because you're actually addicted, but but whatever. That's not really what I'm talking about right now. But yeah, so those are the main reasons why people say that they use weed. To relax at the end of the day, to alleviate some stress, I guess you could say, or some people, they might try to blame it on their anxiety or something like that. But those are the people who are only smoking at the nighttime at the end of the day. What about the people who are smoking the first thing they do when they wake up, or smoking multiple times throughout the day? I know when I was a big stoner, I was smoking 3, 4, 5 times a day sometimes, smoking like 4 blunts a day, which is kind of crazy. I used to be one of the biggest stoners that I've ever known. But I used to tell myself, oh yeah, it just calms me down. It kind of helps me with my nerves. It kind of helps relax me, I guess you could say. And that was all BS. That was all bullshit. For the people who are smoking every day, multiple times a day, think about it. What are you really relaxing? It's the middle of the day. It's the morning time. How are you relaxing when you're smoking weed? You just woke up. You literally just woke up and you're gonna smoke a blunt. Like you just woke up. What are you relaxing to? What stress was there? You had stress falling asleep. You had stress sleeping. How are you gonna tell yourself that you're smoking weed to relax in the morning time when you're smoking? It just doesn't make any sense. But anyways, I feel like the reason why men use weed more than women is not because they work harder, I guess you'd say, like work harder throughout the day or have harder jobs and that sort of stuff. Because women do work hard throughout the day when it comes to school, jobs, etc. They basically have the same exact jobs as men, excluding like construction workers and those sorts of labor jobs, I guess you could say, right? But I think the real reason is because men aren't really good at processing their emotions. Now, I know a lot of people are going to click off this video after hearing that and they don't want to hear this, but this is actually really important stuff that I think a lot of people will benefit from if you actually hear this. So really listen to this video. Think about the first time you started getting into actually smoking weed. When you first started smoking weed, you're just doing it for fun, right? You're with your friends. You're probably peer pressured into doing it. You're probably at like a park or something like that. You guys were drinking at someone's house, whatever, and you started smoking. And you thought it was nice at first, right? You smoke once, you're like, oh, that was nice. I would do that again, but probably in like a month or so. A month goes by, you probably do it again, and then you start getting more exposed to it. And then it gets to the point where you're doing it once a week, maybe. You're like, oh yeah, once a week's not bad. I could still do my schoolwork. I could still do my work or homework. And then you start doing it like 2 or 3 times a week. So you start smoking whenever you have the chance, whenever you have nothing to do. Because what weed actually does, the main reason why people smoke weed is because it alleviates boredom. It gives you the ability to get rid of boredom. So it's basically like a button that you press and then your boredom is just gone. Because think about it, whenever you smoke or when you started smoking multiple times a day or whenever you fully got into smoking, the reason why you would actually smoke is because you were bored at the end of the day or you were bored at this certain time. So you didn't know what to do. So you just ended up smoking. And then after you smoke, you do more dopamine inducing things like eating junk food or watching, explicit content, I guess you could say. Or I don't know, eating junk food and watching anime, whatever dopamine inducing things that you're thinking of. Now, that's one reason. Another main reason why people smoke a lot of weed is because they have a lot of emotions that they haven't processed and that they haven't dealt with. So the weed kind of distracts them from this. And a lot of people don't really know this. A lot of people won't really, I guess you could say, diagnose themselves with this issue where they're only smoking because they have some sort of emotional suppression or non-processed emotions that's going through their body. And the reason why a lot of people don't know this is because they've never actually saw these unprocessed emotions. They never actually saw the reason why they're smoking because they're too busy smoking to even see this stuff. Because when you smoke weed, all your problems kind of go away. You smoke that blunt, you get a bit high, and then you distract yourself with different things like movies, I don't know, explicit content, video games, etc. So you're not even thinking about unprocessed emotions because you have certain distractions in place, and weed is a distraction in itself. But then you do more distracting things, so you're able to forget about what you're thinking about. Now, I know for a fact that this is something I myself was using weed for. I remember when I first started smoking weed, I was just doing it for fun. I was doing it with my friends. It became a habit. It was just a fun thing to do, a social thing to do with my friends. But when everyone graduated high school, because I started smoking weed in high school, when everyone graduated high school, and I was kind of on my own because I didn't go to college and university. I'm a barber, so that's what I was doing out of high school. So when the time came where I was by myself, I was smoking a lot of weed still. And the reason why I was smoking a lot of weed still is because I didn't know what I was going to do. At the time, I guess you could say of the highest of when I was smoking, where I actually felt the urge to smoke, was when I was kind of, I guess you could say, lost. Like I didn't know what to do. I didn't know what to really do with my life. I didn't know if I want to be a barber, if I want to do this or I want to do that. It was a time where I was actually contemplating quitting becoming a barber and then starting my own business and that sort of stuff. And yeah, I just didn't have any direction, I guess you could say. So that's the reason why I was smoking so much, so I could mask those feelings, so I could kind of suppress those feelings down. When I would smoke, I'd go ahead and then distract myself after that by listening to music or watching anime or anything like that, right? So I wouldn't think about my actual issues. But the issue was, after I was finished getting high and there was some sort of come down, then what would happen? Like those issues and emotions would come back up. So I'd go and smoke again and again. And this is what a lot of people do. I know for a fact a lot of people are smoking weed because, one, they're bored. That's just one. But I guess you would say boredom is an emotion in itself. You can't really sit with yourself. That's not a good thing. And two, because they have something that they're trying to hide from and something that they're trying to run away from. It's just escapism. That's what it is. It's pure escapism. Another important thing that you need to realize is that a lot of men don't really have good ways of expressing their emotions because they were never taught how to do that. There's kind of a stigma in society that men, it's not okay for men to cry and you can't show emotions and that sort of stuff. So they kind of naturally grow up thinking that they're not able to express their emotions in a certain way. Where women, on the other hand, they're able to fully do that and fully express themselves without having any societal repercussions, I guess you could say. So that's one thing to take into account, is that a lot of men don't really know how to process or deal with their emotions. So what do? They try to hide for them. They try to suppress them. They try to distract themselves from them. So they go to weed to mask those emotions and escape them, right? Women don't need to do this because women are openly able to cry and complain and do all this different type of stuff and moan and whatever. And you see it. Like if you have a mother, if you have a sister, you see it all the time. Like, yo, why is this person so emotional? Just suck it up, whatever. So that's probably not 100% the full reason why men are more addicted to weed than women, but it's 100% part of it. It's just our way of coping with things. Another thing to realize is that when it comes to men are very logical when it comes to fixing issues and dealing with emotions. So we like to think about things. We like to rationalize things in our brain, and we like to rationalize in our brain why this issue isn't a thing or shouldn't be a thing. We like to problem solve or fix things. So I'll explain this right now. There's two different ways of dealing with your emotions. There's the masculine way and then the feminine way. The masculine way is kind of logically rationalizing the problem away in your head, or logically rationalizing the emotion away in your head. So let's say there's an issue. Let's say you're dealing with some sort of issue. Let's say you're dealing with the feeling of being lonely, I guess you would say. The way a man would deal with that issue is he would logically rationalize in his head, like, oh, no, the emotion, I shouldn't be feeling this way. I'm not actually lonely. I have my family with me. I have my friends with me. I have my girlfriend with me. I could go get girls if I want to. I could go talk to people if I want to. And then they would logically rationalize the emotion away. But what women would do is they would feel their emotions away. They would experience their emotions away. So that's why you see a lot of women crying. That's why you see a lot of women who are very expressive with their emotions, and they don't really care about that. But a lot of them completely take logic out of the picture, if you know what I'm saying. So that's the thing, is that you need to have both. You can't have logic without emotion, and you can't have emotion without logic. You need the two to fully get rid of the problem. You need the two to fully get rid of that emotion. Think about it like this. Here's an analogy. Let's say you're in a house and your basement is flooded and there's a bunch of water on the ground, and the water kind of symbolizes that certain emotion that you're feeling. The way a man would deal with it is they would just turn off the tap, right? They would just fix the broken tap. The way the feminine would deal with it is they would take a bucket of water, go to the water, scoop the water with the bucket, bring it outside, pour it out. And then they just keep doing that over and over and over again. So what the feminine is doing is they're releasing the emotion. They're draining the emotion out of the house, or they're draining the water out of the house. But the issue with that is that you could drain all the water that you want, but the tap is still broken and there's water still leaking. And the problem is, if you just turn off the tap or fix the tap, there's still water inside of your house. You need to get rid of that. So that's the importance of having both. You need logic and emotion. You need to logically rationalize the problem away, and you need to feel or experience the emotions away, because that's how you drain it. That's how you expel it. Now, when you smoke weed, it automatically just doesn't allow you to do these things because you're distracting yourself. You're high. How are you going to do that when you're high? You know? And I know a lot of people think when they're high. Like, a lot of people say that they think about their problems when they're high. It kind of gives them a bad trip whenever they're high, whatever. And that's the thing. Since weed does kind of give you the ability to think a bit more, or you start thinking about different things, and there's more of a masculine way of dealing with your issues, but you're still suppressing that emotion because you're not experiencing it or feeling it. Because think about it. When you're angry, what do? You punch something, you express yourself. You're like, you punch a pillow, you punch the air, you punch someone in the face, whatever. And then you're not as angry after. You're releasing the emotion by feeling it. But if you want to get rid of the anger too, you kind of have to logically think in your head, okay, I shouldn't be angry about this. Maybe I was, maybe I was wrong. Maybe I was thinking too much about it. Maybe I was tripping, you know? So that's the thing, you need both. Now, the thing is, a lot of men are scared to feel their emotions, I guess you could say, whereas women, they don't care. They'll cry in front of a bunch of people. They'll cry here. They'll complain, whatever. They'll do that sort of stuff because they're not really afraid to feel their emotions. But yeah, that's just my thoughts about it. There's so many other healthy ways to cope with your emotions. You don't have to smoke weed. You could go to the gym. You could journal. You could go for a walk without headphones, or just sit with yourself. Sit with yourself, and whatever emotion that you're feeling, feel it, and then logically rationalize it away. You don't have to smoke weed. If you smoke weed and you're suppressing your emotions, then it's going to come back to you one day. It's going to bite you in the ass one day. But anyways, those are just my thoughts. And if you like the video, then leave a like, and also comment your experience on this. Also subscribe if you want to hear more content like this. All right, guys, later.